quickly present my screen and just again confirm that my screen is visible to all of you. Then we can go. Is it visible?
Yes. Yes.
Slideshow. Okay. Okay. So let's quickly move on to the subsequent slides. Just to set the key elements of a pitch deck and what are the aspects which you may want to avoid as well. To set the context here, I also want to quickly let you know a fundamental difference between investor deck and pitch deck, because this is a common mistake. I wouldn't say a mistake typically, aspect where entrepreneurs can get confused between an investor deck and a pitch deck. So you can typically see that investor deck is something which is a little bit when you look at a pitch deck provides largely information and some of who could possibly be investors, partners, and startups, whereas the investor deck is largely focused to the financial side of it. So I would say that when you're preparing something which is a pitch deck, it's largely for the general audience, where it could include investors, partners, and startups, other people as well, or people whom you may want to collaborate with. The investor deck is something which is very, very different, where it may include more financial elements of your business and business model. So I would firstly encourage you all to understand this fundamental difference between this investor deck and the pitch deck, which means you may want to avoid certain financial metrics. You may otherwise include it in the pitch deck inadvertently. So this is a fundamental point which I want to share specific information. Another important point I also want to set the basis here is if you look at the pitch deck is for someone who doesn't know anything about your business itself. Whereas you look at the investor deck, is going to be very, very targeted, very sharp. So someone who already knows about your business venture and where you're going to drip feed them with some more aspects on the financial metrics of the company. So a fundamental point is, if in case you want to include anything here in a pitch deck, you may rather want to include details on your revenues or your traction of business numbers on a very high level. In the investor pitch deck, the same aspect on the financial metrics will include over and above the basic details in terms of revenue, customers, and other details. You may also want to include aspects on the valuation, and then further more details on your EBITDA, PAT, and whatnot. So I think that's a fundamental point here. And pitch deck normally is useful when you have a video or something where you can substantiate or you can be aided with your in-person aspect as well. So in fact, another important point I also want to let you know, a recent trend which is coming through in the market is a pitch deck where founders present audio as well, because audio or a video as well. So because everyone understands that showcasing the details on PPT mode is becoming a little mundane. So it's quite interesting where founders and entrepreneurs are coming up with the visually interesting and appealing pitch deck, where it can possibly be added or accentuated with your audio video skills along the presentation slide, or it is appended in addition to your additional details. Or another aspect which we see as a trend is a link, which either it could be a YouTube link or something, which will substantiate whatever points you may otherwise want to add in this particular along with the presentation itself. So this is specific. I mean, this is a particular point I want to quickly reiterate here. So to quickly summarize between the pitch deck and the investor deck, pitch deck is something for anyone, everyone, where it includes the investors, partners, startups, and other people in general. Whereas the investor deck is something which is, let's assume that once you have done your pitch deck and probably the investor wants you to share more details and metrics, then at that stage, your details, you may want to share these details on the investor. And if there are some people in the financial community who want more metrics, then at that time, you're going to be sharing more details on the investor deck itself. So this is a basic context I want to clarify, because many times there's a high possibility people get to mix both of these. So this is a basic context in which I want to get this started with. Okay, so in the industry and nomenclature, people generally say it's a slide deck, startup deck, whatever it is. And with regard to what you typically see, you can typically see that it's a presentation that provides a brief but informative overview of your business as well. And just focus on these key points which I have indicated here. So another common mistake we normally notice in the pitch deck is every entrepreneur wants to share as much information in the presentation pitch itself, which is fine. But the most important thing is look at it from the investor standpoint, or probably look at it from the other side of the table. People do not have as much time and attention span to read, which means it's very, very difficult for someone to keep at you in terms of understanding every bit of whatever you want to speak. So it's very important that you have to present this in a very, very concise manner. And when I say concise, it could be using less content on a textual matter. It could be something where you add in some visual content so that people can understand it in a much more easier standpoint, and also focus on the most important details which matter. So for instance, problem statement. What is the problem statement? What is your business plan? What is the business model? What product and service offerings do you provide to the community? Who is your target customer? And here, which is where you may also want to indicate the high-level financial projections, which is where when I did mention about this high-level financial projections, it's largely about what is the revenue traction you're making today, and a little bit on an estimate on what you are likely to achieve in the near future, without going into specifics. In fact, in an Excel sheet, you will typically find as much details, but this is not something you want to provide at this stage. And moving on with the funding needs, if it happens to be a pitch deck focused on the investor community, you may want to add details on what is the fund ask, or probably what's the funding you require from the community, and why do you require it, and where do you intend to utilize this. I think this is a basic point, and always understand that this is effectively a tool to tell it as a tool. So I think that's the fundamental point. So I would say it's business and data storytelling. I think that's how you'll have to look at it. And most importantly, try to make it visually attractive with less content in a typical. And another important point is always relate this. What is the purpose of the pitch deck? So it's to spark interest, and the sparking the interest could be among any aspect, right? Just imagine if you're looking, I mean, there could be different use cases you may want to use this pitch deck itself. So let's say if you are looking to raise funds, that could be a specific area. So in such a scenario, it could mean that you may want to trigger that particular interest among the investor community. So that is one element you may want to focus on. The second use case could be possibly you may want to attract collaborative partners to support you in your ecosystem. Point two. So third, it could possibly be getting more people to work for you. So that could be another aspect you may want to focus on. Or sometimes it could be for accessing grants and funds. So the basic idea is you may want to spark the interest on the recipient who's on the other side of the table. And most importantly, do not think that this will achieve everything. So normally these pitch deck is helpful to get or move you to the next step, where it will help you in achieving or getting the next level of interactions. It could be meetings, discussions, or requests for more information. I think that is the specific aspect you will have to focus on. And always understand that it's not about losing that deal then and there, but increasing that connect interest. In fact, I'm not saying that it will never happen. It's definitely possible that there are ways where people have benefited by getting these, but I would say it is a trigger point. It's a spark. It's an element where you focus as a catalyst so that you move it ahead with the next side of the people. Next, I want to quickly move ahead on what would you typically include in a pitch deck. To get started with, you may definitely want to include some details on the vision and the value proposition. What is your business there for? And ideally, you can use the Twitter method where you mention about what your business is all about in 100 or probably 200 characters in a way your parents would understand. Probably if you have children, your children would understand. I think the essence is about making it very simple so that the person who is on the other side will be in a very good aspect to understand your nature of business as well, because it's very, very important that making it very, very simple is tough, but that's where you have to make it work so that because just imagine the people who are on the investor or probably on the other side may not necessarily be coming from your own side of business. So let's say you are in focusing on a product, focusing on a healthcare industry, and the other person, let's say he has $1 million with him, but he does not understand healthcare. How do you make it work for you? I think that is where you have to make it very simple and lucid so that the person can relate with you on your vision, your value proposition, so that it can be made effective and you take him along with you in your journey. So it's that's the basic idea here. And moving ahead, you definitely want to focus on your problem statement. What is the problem you're solving for the community? Who has that problem? How painful is that problem? And which is where you can try and tell a relatable story when you're defining the problem. And the more the problem is as real as possible, the more people will be in a better position to understand your business and the potential of the business as well. Because here you can typically see that every entrepreneur or every venture is looking to solve a problem. What is the problem and how burning is the problem? How effective? I mean, in fact, I'm not even talking about the solution as well, but the problem, the pain point the customers have, and who has the problem. I think this is something which is very, very important. And the more impressively you communicate this point, the better would it be for you in terms of driving your message across. Moving ahead, looking at the target market and opportunity, you may want to focus on who your ideal customer would be. How many such customers are there? So I think this is where you may want to slowly focus on the target segment. It could be the Indian market, it could be the international market, and how big is this? And how do you position your company in the market? So if you look at any particular industry, you have cars. So cars are of different types, but then you have a Maruti, you have a Hyundai, and then you have the BMW and Benzes. So effectively, it's more about the positioning as well. So the basic idea here is how do you typically communicate to the world that what the market size could be and how do you position, where do you fit in that particular equation? That's something which you'll have to focus. And this is where you focus on mentioning to the customers on or the investors on the scope and scale of the problem you're solving as well. And this will help in the investors who know that this is a specific area and the target market you're focusing on. And then subsequently, you'll move on to the solution. And this is where you typically will mention how your customers will use your product or service and how it addresses the problem. How do you alleviate the pain? If you remember, you started with the problem statement where you said people have a problem. Great. Now you're at that solution point. How do customers use your product and how does it relieve their pain? And that's something which you will typically address at this stage. And the focus here will largely be on the customers and the problems those customers face. And this is where you may want to focus more on images, pictures, stories to deliver impact. Another interesting message I want to give here is if you have some very interesting customer story, testimonial, or some video you captured on the field, on the ground, it'll be very, very hard hitting because this is something which is the core of what you're solving as well. So when you're driving the message or communication here, it'll drive for two things. One, the problem that customer faces and how your problem is typically solved. So I would say a customer testimony would be awesome to have at that particular point. But I leave that judgment on where you will want to introduce this or how you will want to communicate this much effectively. Next, you'll move on to the revenue or the business model, because always understand that customers want to, the entrepreneurs definitely want to see, the investors definitely want to see what your revenue or business model is all about. how does the company make money? How does your venture make money? What are the revenue channels? Is it virtual? Is it in person? Is it physical? Is it retailers? Is it the value chain? Are there any advertising models in which are there any affiliate models? What are the different ways by which the venture can make money from the model you're working on? And at this stage, you will also want to showcase more on the competitors as well. And depending on the quantum of hello, did someone have a question? Okay, so I hope, I mean, if there's any question, please hold it on and we'll take it up subsequently. Depending on the quantum of information you have, you may want to showcase on the competitive landscape subsequently. And you may also want to, at this stage, showcase details on the pricing, segment, and positioning as well. And let's quickly move ahead with the other points. So once you're done with these aspects, you definitely want to showcase on the business traction. So when I say business traction, let's assume you've been in the business for, let's assume 3 years. So let's say 2018, 19, 19, 20, 2021, 2020. So how has the business grown typically? How have you acquired customers? So can you showcase the customer acquisition roadmap? Can you showcase the revenue roadmap? Can you showcase any more milestones? Let's say 1,000 customer, 10,000 customer, or probably the first million or second million, whatever. It could be in terms of revenue, it could be in terms of unit shipments, it could be in terms of customer acquisitions. So the basic idea here is you definitely want to showcase on the key milestones the company has introduced. So in case some of you happen to be in services, you may want to showcase it likewise. If you happen to be on possibly on any other side, you may want to relate with it, how you'll want to showcase to the customers or probably the investors, and likewise present it. You may also want to share the testimonials which we discussed about at this stage, and how and what the roadmap looks like in the future as well. So let's move on to the subsequent points. 1 minute. Yeah. And next, you will typically focus on the marketing and sales strategy. And this is where your typical GTM will be updated, where your go-to-market strategy will be updated. First, know you exist in the market. So what are the aspects you're focusing to let your customers know? Is it through a physical store? Is it through any particular channel? Or is it through a typical archaic manner in which you reach out to customers? What are the marketing and sales plan with appropriate business tactics? So what strategy do you have to tell people out there that you exist in the market? It's a very, very important point which you'll have to indicate. And team is something which is a very, very important point, because every investor or everyone, I mean, any partner or any discussion, everyone will look. So they strongly believe that the key members, the team, the founder, the co-founder, probably the senior management team, the advisory board, or probably the mentors and other people who are backing this venture play a very, very active role. So I would say that both for investor standpoint, or probably if you're looking to take people on board, or probably look at co-founders or whatever, having these team members is something which is very important. And this is where you will have to showcase. So many times people say, okay, this is the CEO, this is the CTO. But most important point, whenever you indicate a CEO, CTO, or whatever, just ensure that what is it they bring to the table? Why are they the go-to, or probably the A team for you? What expertise do they bring? And what successes have they showcased in their earlier ventures? I think these are very, very critical points. In fact, this is something people always typically, I mean, when this point comes in, people typically see, okay, great, IAM, ISB, or any of these typical ventures, people typically have this notion on getting to see it. But I would say it's not necessarily that you need to have a very strong team on that front. It helps from a brand visibility, it helps, but it doesn't mean anything, because there have been some very, very interesting people, because which is where the places you've worked or the successes you've shown. I think that's a very, very important point. Do not really get limited by the fact whether you come from a premium institution or probably companies you work, always look at what you have achieved in these companies. I think that's what typically matters, because the fact that you've been a game changer in any of the earlier aspects will definitely mean something, and doesn't always need to be that you have to come from a very a premier institution itself. But fundamentally, having a right team will be very, very essential to give the confidence on to the investors. Just imagine, because every investor is going to put money to the team which is going to be building it. So this is a very, very important point. And having and another important point is having a very, very diverse team. So when I say diverse, having a team which, let's say, if you're building, let's say, e-commerce or probably for retail. So it's important that you need to have people across diverse spectrum, which could be retail, could be like tech, and possibly on other spectrums. So effectively, just try to see that you have a mix of diverse people in the team, which bring complementary effect to what you're looking to create as well. So, okay, now moving on to the financials, I would say that while I've indicated these details, it's not necessary that you have to present all and everything here. So as I've indicated, it's not mandatory to present all of these. You may be better off showcasing some high-level metrics in terms of the sales forecast or the customer forecast, or probably the top level information. It's not necessary to show the specifics, because all those specifics can follow through in the subsequent point. The fundamental idea is to how have the financials been moving in terms of revenue, customer acquisitions, and the top level numbers. I think that is adequate at this point, with some metrics on the sales forecast as well. Competition is again something which you can't run away from, because it's very, very important that you indicate who your competitors are. And this is a very, very interesting point. In fact, having competition is something which is good, because there is a benchmark for you to look upon. So, and when someone is looking to relate with you, it's fine. So the most important point is, many people, sometimes entrepreneurs say that, no, there is no competition for the market, because in fact, having no competition is actually a little bit dangerous. Then probably it means that you do not know the business, or probably you are venturing into a territory where there is not much interest, right? I mean, it could mean as many things. Why is there no competition? It can mean that possibly the business potential is not there largely, or it could be that there are not too many customers. So be very, very watchful when you say that you do not have competition for your product. In fact, investors understand that there can be competition, but the most important point is, though there could be a competition, how can you prevent, or what is your USP? How do you prevent that moat? Is it through technology? Is it through partnerships? Is it through any other level of engagement, which is going to create a moat around you, right? I think that's the most important point. Having competition is, like he said, is pretty good, but how are you going to be different in the market? I think that's the fundamental point. You have to be very, very important. So, like I said, the key advantages you have over the competition, and that's a very, very important point. And do you have any specific USP, a unique selling point? Do you have a secret sauce which you possess, which the customer, your competitors do not possess? I think a very, very important point. So I think this is another very, very interesting point, which in fact, which is where not just late with the market, right? In fact, if there was Flipkart, I mean, if there had been Amazon, then it could have just been Amazon, right? Like the e-commerce space. But beyond Amazon, you had Flipkart, and after Flipkart, you had a whole lot of companies. The First Cry, all of these companies came out with different business models, or probably different ways of showcasing the product to the customer as well. So I would like to quickly indicate how are you different over your competition. So that's a very, very important point. Moving on with the investment part and probably the use of funds, it's very, very important that you clearly indicate the quantum you require. Is it $1 million? Is it like $10 million? Whatever it is, whatever the quantum is, why would you need this amount you see? And before that, you may also want to showcase how much you have invested yourself. See, because investors also understand that you have put in your money into the table, right? So there is skin in the game. That's a very, very important point, which is where they appreciate ventures which have put in their own, whether it is like from your own source, your friends, family, or any grants or whatever. But the basic idea is how much of skin do you have in the game? That's something which you have done. And investors also like companies which have scaled up their venture from A to B or 0 to 1 using that initial level of hustling, right? I think that's a very, very important point. If you can typically do that part and have a reasonable level of customer traction and a small way to scale up your venture, I think investors are definitely looking to put money on it. I think that's where the resilience of the founders comes into the table. And the subsequent point is, what is the quantum you require? And how do you plan to use the money? And what are the typical milestones? And another important point is, if in case some of you already have investors on board, why did they choose to invest in the first place? And are they interested in the subsequent rounds as well? So the basic idea here, to quickly summarize on this point, the quantum you desire or you require, how much quantum have you put in the game, and how much quantum you require, why do you require this quantum, by receiving this fund, what is your business likely to look like in the future, and where are you likely to use this money to use? Okay, a couple of points which I want to indicate here are sometimes investors or probably the entrepreneurs, founders, being very keen on showcasing as much information, share too many slides and too many words in one slide. So both these are two different points. Too many slides, just giving a simple example, anything above 20 slides is going to be too lengthy. 20 slides above. So I would say 15 to 20 is okay. Anything above can be too mundane. Second point, too many words in one slide. So let's say one slide, if I had 200 words or 500 words, just imagine how that would look like. Too much wordy, verbose, not going to be for you. The first point. Second point, poor layout and design, spelling mistakes. So people, it may look very arbitrary. Just ensure that, because what happens is, on the other side, investors typically get misled, or probably they just zone out. They think, okay, this person doesn't even understand this, or probably they're making such a silly mistake. How am I to depend him if in case I put money into it? So it may look very stupid, but this is how the market works. People zone out. That's something which is there. And lack of storytelling, I think that's something which is also a very, very important point. If you're not going to usually very elegantly communicate the storyline to the investor, it's also going to be lacking interest. Very, very important. And another point here is, if in case you do not have business traction and validation, that's again going to be a very, very important point, where the company or the investors feel that, great, you want money, but you're not done anything. Or your traction is so low that I don't see any interest, or you want money and you're looking to grow business only from whatever I put in. So all these are something which will not take you anywhere. So and the validation as well. So I think I would strongly suggest, if in case you are largely at ideation stage, see if you can work around on these areas, because largely at ideation stage, you will not have much details to showcase. And that's a very big pain point for people in the ideation stage. So, which is where you may want to possibly get some early adopters, or possibly if there are any MOUs which you have signed with people, or any technology or licensing engagement you have, or any patent you have. I think it's very, very important, because I can completely relate with people in that particular side of the story, where if you do not, if you're largely on that ideation stage and you don't have anything to showcase, it can be very, very challenging. So I thought I'd just spend a minute or two showcase to tell you how you can possibly work that out. And this is also another important pain point, where you do not showcase on the projections. What next? How much am I looking to or likely to grow in the future? What is the CAGR? What is the growth pattern looking like? And last point here is, like I did mention earlier, investors come from different domains. So if you happen to be a health tech, or probably agri tech, or probably a specific venture, or a deep tech venture, you may very easily use certain jargons and words and acronyms, which the other person will not be able to relate with, because for him, he is keen to put money in a venture he understands. Whereas if you throw a lot of these jargons, I think this is something which can happen with any industry. because sometimes we feel that this is a very, very basic aspect. Why can't that person understand? So it's unfortunate, but you have to be watchful whenever you're working this out. It can easily happen across any industry. It can happen in the tech industry, it can happen in the R&D space, because depending on the industry you work, you may be forced to use these targets, but be watchful about using these, or probably indicate what exactly it means. So, because the basic idea here is in fact, if you relate back with the use case earlier, you'll look likely you have to make it very simple so that a common person can read and understand. That's a fundamental point. But I'm not saying that you should not use jargons. It's important that you use jargons so that you showcase your technical capabilities. Use it judiciously and clarify wherever you think you have to do. With regard to the tools itself, I think there are enough and more tools. I think PowerPoints are more than adequate. Apart from that, Canva has its own aspect. You have Resi, you have SlideBeam, you have Apple Keynote, you have Picture Effect, you have PitchDeck.io, you have Beautiful.io. All are different tools and platforms which help in accentuating your platform. I would still say a PowerPoint converted into a PDF file is more than adequate. But wherever you can use these platforms, you can very well use it. I think these would be relevant when you're doing it in a virtual or an in-person session where you can bring in the dynamism into the table much more effectively. Okay, so these are some basic ideas on some details which I want to showcase. In fact, I want to maybe I'll have my colleague share you some templates, because that's another question which keeps coming back to us. Can we have like a template? So I would like to say that there isn't any standard template itself. I would say that everything depends on your own creativity. Let me quickly, for the benefit of discussion purpose, let me quickly summarize whatever we have done right now. So in fact, as a matter of fact, the pitch deck itself you can summarize in 11 to 15 slides. Just look at the nature in which the flow happens. You start with value proposition and vision, which is where you mentioned about that 100 or 200 words, what your vision is likely to be. Moving on to the problem statement. What is the problem you're likely to solve? And who are the people who are impacted by it, and how painful is that problem? Next, you move on to the third point, where the target market and opportunity, how big the market is, and where the opportunity lies, and who are the typical customers. And if you typically see this here, there is a typical flow here. So after the problem, solution is not indicated. After problem, move to the showcasing the business itself, how big the business is, and how the opportunity lies. And next, you bring the solution. I hope you're getting this point here. You're not moving a direct line where problem and solution is not coming through. Problem, opportunity, and then the solution. And solution is where you showcase on what your product and solution is all about and how you're likely to solve it for your customers. And next, the go-to-market strategy, where you showcase on your go-to-market strategy. How does a customer know you, your marketing and sales plan? Next, you showcase on how you're likely to make money, and the moving ahead with the validation roadmap, how you have typically grown. This is where you showcase your business traction. And next, you showcase more on the team. Who are the people who are in your A team, and how they are important to make the vision succeed. Next, you move on to the financials. Like I said, very, very high level and top level information, nothing else. See this here. Financials, you're presenting it somewhere there, and you're not necessarily at a target. I think that's completely fine, and leave that choice up to you. And finally, you move or close ahead with the investment and the use of funds. So typically, you can see that it's more a storytelling aspect, and there is a flow to it. Sometimes people wish to showcase competition after target market opportunity. That's completely fine. Use it at your discretion on how and what works for you. But I think this should fairly be in line with how you typically would require. So I'll probably pause, stop, or share. Take up some questions, because I noticed that there were some questions already. So probably I'll stop here and take up some questions. Okay, I could see I have a question from Arvind. Maybe I can read it. If there are any questions, please unmute and talk. For the time being, I have a question. Arvind has sent a message. I'm in initial phase of bootstrapping. It's like trying to validate the concept on our own. Can I go for some sort of seed funding? Should I go for it? My concept is associated with a rural healthcare segment. Arvind, if you're there, would you want to step in and add some more words to whatever you mentioned? Arvind? Is Arvind here? Okay, so not wrong. To address Arvind's question, I can quickly mention important point. Yeah, Arvind, do you want to open up and mention a few points? Arvind, would you want to talk? Would you want to just unmute and share something about the question? Otherwise, I'll get going with it.
Yeah, good morning, sir. You getting my voice?
Yeah, loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning to everyone. Mine concept is associated with the rural healthcare segment because see, this is something that I experienced myself in my 3-4 years life while I was in UP and Bihar and Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. So there people are not only they are aware, but there is also lack of infra. So with that point, I started this particular thing. So initially I'm trying to validate my own concept, and up to some extent we got success. We have a very small team. So for that, I'm looking for some sort of seed funding. Should I go for that? I mean, should I prepare for that, or should I keep on working on my own? That is a simple question from my side.
Okay. So to quickly address your question, Arvind, at any stage in your business, the key will be to acquire customers to showcase that there is business and business potential, right? And that's with regard to raising funds. Raising funds is something where you do when you need the business to or you need money to accelerate, right? So,
exactly.
If let's say in the pilot, whichever you're doing, you're quite fine, or you do not require any support, and you're still looking at validating, that's completely fine. But if you feel that you've got that validation, right, and it's more a money equation, then it might be a good idea to focus on it. In terms of the approach, yes, you can definitely look to get any of these people. Let's say you may want to definitely focus on getting the grant, seed, fund. That's completely fine. The basic idea here is how do you showcase it. So I think that's a basic point. So the key is you can definitely approach the grants, and for people in that ideation stage, I would largely recommend that instead of you trying to approach to the VCs and the other people, incubators and accelerators are a good place for you to reach out, because incubators and accelerators are meant to support people like you all who are there in that ideation stage. So I would, Arvind, I would ideally request you to reach out to incubators like say, I think Will Grow, IRMA. So all of these are people who are focused on rural communities, and see if you can get yourself into, because they provide a lot of assistance like mentoring and getting market access. So there is a whole lot of ecosystem they provide, and that's exclusively what they focus on. Because many times people get confused between should I go to an investor or should I go to the market directly. So if you're largely in that incubator and you do not have that MVP, which is, or probably the minimum lovable product. I think MVP or minimum lovable product is what today the market says. I would highly encourage that you focus on getting yourself support from the incubators rather than you putting yourself to reach out to the fund or probably the people, because they will not typically relate with you. They still feel that you still have a long way to go. So that's what I would say. I hope that's.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Okay, I thought I had another question here. Provide an example rating on points. Okay, Saurabh, I saw your question. Saurabh, yes, I can possibly showcase, but I don't know whether. Just give me a minute. Saurabh, your question is about provide an example relating to all the points I explained. So give me a minute. I don't want to show something which. In fact, I have many options. I don't think I will want to showcase anything which is live, and because it becomes more like a breach of trust or whatever. I don't want to show anything on that front. Let me showcase a slide from Swiggy. So probably it can be relatable for as many people. Is that okay? So give me a minute. I'm sharing a slide from Swiggy's initial pitch deck. Is this visible to you all? Can someone confirm if it's visible?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, it's visible, Vignesh.
yeah, thanks. So here is these pitch deck. We're trying to showcase of 1 minute. I don't know whether it's the first slide. So yeah, typically showcasing on about them and the history, and then the values. So all this is the initial part of Swiggy's pitch deck where they were focusing on it. And why Swiggy? So this is that USP, right? So exciting offers and discounts, hassle-free delivery, customized orders, monthly subscription offers, and customized meals after consultation with dietitian and nutritionist. And next, the competitive advantage. So own fleet of delivery boys equipped with smartphones and so aims to deliver food within 15-20 minutes and more reliable, faster. So you can typically see this, right? So, 1 minute. And then I think this is more like a part document which I had, but I just want to drive that particular message on. You can typically see what was communicated, right? A couple of points you may have typically seen: the color, the logo, what they stand for, their presence currently. You can see that they're only starting with a very small cohort in Bangalore itself. And then what is their USP and the delivery boys. So the basic idea is to quickly showcase on those key elements and how they are distinct to the market. So I hope that was useful to you to some extent there, Saurabh. Okay, I have another question from Prabhal Patel. Prabhal, would you want to open up and talk? Unmute and talk, please. I will also read it. If we define the problem as something missing, that and we have the technology, that means we problem has a customer code or in there. Okay, Prabhal, would you want to just unmute and talk? It'll be great if you open up and speak.
Yeah, sure. I can just go over this. So the issue we are having is, we have a unique technology which is not available in the India market, but that is our differentiator, right? And so the question is really, are we focusing too much on the technology initially as the problem that we are solving, rather than a end customer or a revenue generating opportunity? I mean, we have one use case, but maybe that market is too small when an investor looks at it. So how do we fix this problem of having a unique technology, but it can only be extrapolated and generate revenue if other people come in and they can really create the market around the technology?
Okay, so I got your perspective on technology and customer or the problem statement itself, Prabhal. So I would say that the first, the precedence will be largely for the problem you're solving. I think that the problem would be the first starting point. Technology, I would believe, is can work for you in 2 ways. One, it could be an enabler if you're likely to use technology to drive things, or it could be a moat, right? A defensive moat you're creating to prevent competition from attacking you. So I think these are the two ways by which the technology itself can do. But the question is, using this technology, are you likely to provide a service or a solution to the customer? Is that a question? I mean, is that problem very painful for the customer today? And by providing your service, are you relieving the pain for the customer? I mean, do you think if this is happening, and who your customers are and how many customers do you think will pay for your service, I think you're pretty well set. So Prabhal, is that fine?
Yeah, I think that is fine. It's only, I think one thing we may have to think about is, can the customer solve his problem using some other technology?
As a matter of fact, I'm not even too sure what is this technology in question and who your customers are. If you can some more perspective, then probably I will think on it. And another point, this is where you have to also ask yourself, or ask, in fact, many times when
okay, let's just summarize. The problem has to be a customer problem, right? It cannot be a technology problem.
Yes, spot on. Because see, simple example. I mean, let's take. In fact, since we have not discussed more on who the customers are, technology, and everything, let's take a very arbitrary example here. So now, look at the problem of cleaning a room, right? So let's say someone has to clean a room. I can probably solve it using taking a broomstick and getting it done, or I can take a vacuum cleaner. I think these are two aspects I can do. But the question is, what is it most of my customers prefer? So I think I leave it at that. So I think I'll just stop here.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah. Thanks, Pawan, for your question. Okay. Salil Gupta, you have a question. Would you want to just quickly open up and or I can read it for you as well?
Yeah. Hello everyone, good morning. So I operate D2C portal wherein I purchase cosmetics from South Korea and distribute it world over. And now outward remittances from India was a problem. Though I am an Indian citizen, I opened private limited company in Singapore because of Forex regulations. Now I am looking for, and there is good traction. So now I am looking for a VC funding. So who will be ideal VC funds should I approach to since my entity is registered in Singapore?
Okay, so thanks again for your question there, Salil. So I can see that you're focusing on the international market. So the interesting point is looking at the investor or investment community itself, they are all across. I mean, they are here in India and they are there in other locations as well. So I would say that instead of, so I think largely it could be the international community which should be there, which should be keen. But considering that you are an entrepreneur from India, you may also want to look at Indian investors looking to invest in international funds. I think that also is a good idea for you. So because they will look at you as an Indian who is operating in a foreign market, and probably that's completely fine. So ideally, or since by virtue of your being present in an international market, you will definitely have to look out for an international fund. But beyond that, you may also want to explore on Indian investors looking to invest in international markets as well. So I think you have the twin advantage of exploring both. That should be fine.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Vignesh.
Thank you, Sunil.
Vignesh, I have a question.
Yes, Bhaskar.
My name is Bhaskar. Okay, so many of the investors, basically they ask to many of the founders that what is the technology you are building into your startup? So what is the importance of this particular question? Because many of the startups, they don't have, they are not a technology enabled startups. So suppose that we are into garden tech. So I mean, after a lot of discussion with the investors, they have told me, and then yes, we are a technology driven startup. So, but can you please just light on this particular subject?
Great, no, wonderful point, Bhaskarji. So, what? Okay, to address that particular question, what investors are looking for is the scalability, right? So, scalability is the point which the investors are looking for. And when you're looking at from a scalability standpoint, technology is a great way to drive scalability. So, which is why companies are asking that particular point. So now, to address that particular point, you can very well say maybe I think it could be having a technology co-founder, but obviously trying to show what is the pipeline. So let's say you're trying to sell your products through online. So maybe what kind of technology stack would you want to build your product on? So is it a meme stack? Is it a LAMP stack? I think all these are technology jargons in terms of how scalable your product itself is. And in the website, what kind of web platforms are you likely to put in? What kind of automation tools you're going to be putting in place? And moving ahead, do you have a game plan of coming out with your own web app or mobile app and everything? So the basic idea here is companies understand that today AI, ML, a lot of things are coming through. So companies will want to understand using technology, can it be an enabler to scale your business better? Because what happens is today what has happened is using AI, ML, I can understand my customers better. I can understand which region, from where are my orders coming through. from which regions, which pin codes are customers coming to me? How do I understand this system better? Can technology help in solving all of these? I think it's a two-way process where you're aligned on the technology front, and where technology can be a great support function to help your business scale up. I think that's where the question is all about. So I think if you can address this in two fronts, it can be much more appropriate. I think that's what I would think the question is about, because companies completely understand that great on a omni-channel approach, this completely works, but they could have possibly seen a technology point maybe a little weak, and which is where you will have to get it accelerated. That's completely fine. I hope that addresses your question, Bhaskar.